So, yeah, man, that commuting and going down and working kind of manually, staying in like focused on getting parts lists and seeing what to do next. That's mentally exhausting.
Isn't it?
Sleep good.
How far are you from a Home Depot?
Lancaster, it's 25 minutes. So you got to get it in Rock Hill and go down there. Gosh, it's really impressive how dead this place is. I'm like thinking, am I really gonna sell this bitch? Is somebody gonna give me some money for this? But the house around the corner got listed. Let me tell you the flowery words for the house around the corner. That's 2,000 square feet, and on the main strip, but it's just listed. It stayed. I don't know what the MLS rules are, but this place got listed 2 weeks before it even appeared on the MLS by the same people. I guess they were hoping to take a pocket listing or something like that. Y'all have MLS rules that you got to be in the MLS within X number of hours?
Supposed to. Yeah. Like 2 days or a day after you get the thing signed.
I'm sure that always happens.
No.
I talked to B Gunn today, just checked in on him.
Yeah, how's he doing?
Licking his chops off of some recent wins on the tax sale.
Good for him. Good.
Yeah. So his sister got married. Do you know his sister?
I met her once. At in Richmond at an event.
$225. So there it is.
Is that right around the corner?
Right around the corner on Dearborn, which is the main drag through there. So the flowery public remarks are beautiful home, a small town America, USA. That's probably anti-something. With formal living and dining spaces, hardwood floors, and a front porch that was made for sitting. You'll see why this old soul has been dearly loved over the years. Formerly, the manse. Does that mean anything to you? The manse. MANSE. Formerly a manse for the neighboring Presbyterian church. The home has a spacious floor plan, room for guests, concrete patio, like a cement pond, out back and fenced-in yard. Underneath the home, there are 2 storage areas. Roof 10 years. Check this out. Outdoor enthusiasts will love the area, like Duke Energy's new $77 million Whitewater Center, Carolina Adventure World, Rocky Creek Sport Enclaves, the Carolina Thread Hiking Trail, and Skydive Carolina, the 3rd largest of its kind in the country. The 3rd largest what of its country? The 3rd largest what kind in the country? I mean, those are separate entities, all those things. The Clays, the Adventure World. Adventure World's where somebody bought some land and they ride ATVs around it.
Yeah.
Do you know what those are? Y'all have them?
A manse? Or
no.
Adventure?
Adventure World.
No, we don't have one.
So it's bigger, but
off, though.
If I make some money of this, I'll try to keep. I think I might have told you I'd like to keep something else going. I told you today. I remember now. So anyway, I don't know if anybody will give me any money for it. I think if I get 150 for it, all done up, I'd be happy.
Heck yeah.
I mean, it'll be 1,400 square feet. But anyway, it's moving along, slow, creeping along. I'd say we got some sheetrock delivered, and in a couple weeks it'll look like something.
Are you doing that?
Better.
Are you doing that in a tax-free entity?
No, I don't have any. No. So you were in the trenches as well?
Yeah. Yeah, trying to finish 2 up at the same time for me is really difficult. Like
Because of manpower or
manpower, just the furnishings. I mean, my living room's full of, we've got boxes everywhere, man. Just everywhere. Just ordering stuff.
dialing it in, plugging up microwaves and
Well, we got built, yeah, just beds, put together beds, dressers.
so you got like um, installation manuals strewn
Everywhere.
about.
Yeah. And then, laundry. I've got some a washer and dryer that I found at a house that I'm trying to get set back up. So I'm troubleshooting that. Meanwhile, on Facebook, looking for a deal on another set. And that's always a pain, like these people don't
You're
want
trying to scale good deals on furnishings,
Yeah.
which you can't do.
No. Rachel's like topped out, dude. In fact, we hired a bookkeeper this week, which is that'd be like us hiring a general contractor replacing me. We're hiring somebody to replace her.
Do they live in America?
Yeah, they're here. We met him in Walter's network. He's a go-getter. He's kind of doing the CFO, the David Richter thing. I don't know if you remember, David Richter was doing that virtual bookkeeping, virtual CFO thing, and he's done, I think, pretty well with it. But I think he wants to deal with people that are probably doing like maybe a mil in revenue a year. Like that's kind of his threshold. So he can get in there and do what he does. This guy's going to do the same thing, but he's dealing with some people like us that are just starting out, aren't doing a mil in revenue.
Does the CFO stand for Chief Financial Officer, like I think it does?
Yeah.
And he wants to be your CFO, or
He's going to be. He is. Yeah.
okay. And he hires out to be the CFO for different organizations.
Yeah, and when I say CFO, I don't know what David Richter's doing, but this guy is going to be, reconciling our books, forming P&Ls, balance sheets, getting them to our inbox once a month, and then just going over like what our lead loss might be, what our dog properties are, where we're making money.
Okay.
Just kind of, because right now, I mean, we're just trying to get it all collected and into the CPA's hands, and it's like,
yeah, that's next level in my organization.
yeah, but we can't really keep up with that. I mean, it's getting out of hand with the sober livings and with the Airbnbs and other stuff. It's just there's so much work, administrative work for her to do. The bookkeeping's not really an option. So he charges $800 a month, basically $10,000 a year. He looked at our business, looked at how much revenue we were doing. We've got 5 different entities. We've got the McDill building, that commercial building. We've got Fondren Furnished Rentals. We've got Fondren Recovery Homes. And then DMS is like the holding company that holds all the stuff that I buy and flip out of. And then I got a little bit of like contracting stuff that I do. So there's all these, and I don't know, 9 bank accounts, 12 business cards, Amexes, Lowe's accounts. I mean, it's a cluster, dude. It's horrible, and all I want to know is like, Rachel, can I have some money? Like I want to go do something. I need to go do something. Mm-hmm. So anyways. If
this thing costs $99 on the internet. Where are we at?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Keeping things simple is a real art in life, I think. As a kid, I didn't have the same pressures, but seemed a lot simpler then. Somehow we make it more complicated. So, yeah, I get mad at the state. I don't know if I've ranted about the state with you before, but
the whole state of South Carolina, or
no, the state, the group of the ruling class of different geographic regions across time, the conquering class that expects a tribute.
Yeah.
So this cat Zeckendorf. Is it backwards or can you see it?
It's perfect.
No, it just looked. No, it's backwards, right?
No, it's not backwards.
Why is it backwards to me? Can I figure that out? So he talked about New Orleans, right? And I've made parallels between Singapore and New Orleans, just landmass size, their diverse population, their reliance on the port, New Orleans is isolated, It used to be called L'Île Nouveau Orléans, but the Isle of New Orleans, it was isolated. And Singapore is a British colony for years and years. I don't know the lineage of their colonial past, but the British pulled out, and I want to say post-war, and then it fell under Malaysian rule, and then they gained independence, maybe late 60s, 50s, early 60s. I'm not going to be exactly right, but they're just the group of young Turks or upstarts. They took over, and they were just beyond not knowing how they were going to progress, and they were just left with nothing. But they just took best practices, and one of the main ones. Did we freeze up? One of the main ones was transparency, lack of corruption, and becoming business friendly. That the transparency allowed foreign investment. They also set up a bond, which, I mean, setting up a bond and investing for the future really has parallels in our lives. Like, we want somebody to fund a role. Like, we think we're smart enough to make money for ourselves if we could only get enough velocity to some money to make a return. And countries they're in the same boat. But that just caused me to have thoughts, just lateral thoughts about New Orleans. And this cat Zeckendorf, he was a Manhattan guy. Zeckendorf, probably a Jew, and New Orleans was not unfriendly to Jews. It was, those Jewish people built New Orleans in various stages of its life, but he's got some scathing words from the 1950s, and there's a few pages that I'd like to read and see if it sounds boring, see if I get stuck in the text. But you buckled in? It's like a bedtime story. I'm fascinated. This is Bill Zeckendorf. He said, "I'm fascinated by cities and how they grow and where they go, as by the men who make them go. It's the men, of course, who count for most. What they are, their city is. As a result, what they are, their city is. As a result, there were some cities where, for quite different reasons, we could never seriously consider working. In Dallas and Houston, for instance, local business groups were so confident in the future of their communities, so well heeled, so eager to invest locally that they felt they didn't need and certainly did not want any outside help. The city of New Orleans similarly frowned on our approach, but since this was a town that desperately needed redevelopment, what we had here was a horse of another color. New Orleans has, by the grace of God, inherited more natural advantages than any other city on the continent. It lies at the base of a great waterway that runs like a spine through the nation. It has water, inexhaustible quantities of water, for all possible uses. It has a great harbor, natural resources in the form of gas, oil, and sulfur, amazingly fertile soil, and plentiful labor. And yet, in the 1950s, it was obviously one of these sad cities where an informal alliance between a money clique and a venal political machine that kept the town in a comfortable for its ruler's state. The economic and behind-the-scenes control of New Orleans was for the most part in the hands of old-time pre-Civil War landowners and families of entrenched capital. A great many living away from New Orleans as semi-expatriates. The major preoccupation of those establishment members in town seemed to be that of living from year to year for the next Mardi Gras. What success and prosperity came to New Orleans came not from the efforts of its elite, but from the bountiful accident of geography and strategic location. Closely held power of the establishment had loosened of late. New leaders have come forth to challenge the once unassailable powerhouse headed by the Whitney Bank. For instance, Louis Rousseau, a Cajun who fought his way up from poverty to prominence in banking and in oil, is now a leader in that town. He and others have joined hands to get things moving and have forced the old guard reluctantly to follow suit. But as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, if you had taken a picture of New Orleans and compared it with one taken 40 years previously, you would have been hard put to find many differences. And in the mid and late 1950s, word to the members of the town's principal social bastion, the Boston Club, that a Zeckendorf was approaching their city would automatically see them raising the drawbridge, standing to arms against the infidel. We were unable to buy property in meaningful continuous lots. And as for Title I projects, we might as well have been preaching racial integration. Whenever I think of American cities, I always find myself comparing New Orleans, which had everything handed to it, and Houston, which made itself what it is. New Orleans had a 100-year head start over most U.S. cities. 70 years ago, Houston couldn't have been more than an overgrown village. True, Houston found oil, but so did New Orleans. It was the dynamic leaders in Houston who made their town the true top city on the Gulf Coast. And they weren't even on the coast. They were many miles inland in the hot flatlands. What Houston did was cut a canal to the Gulf to become a seaport. Then they built a chemical center and later a space-age technological center. Houston has now safely bypassed Galveston and undercut Beaumont, Port Arthur, and Orange, Texas, which once might have been rivals. And farther down the Gulf, New Orleans, for all its free gifts of nature, will not catch up to Houston in our lifetimes. In contrast to towns such as New Orleans, Pittsburgh, where a new Democratic mayor, David Lawrence, formed an alliance with all those deep-eyed Republicans to make a better town, is an example of a creative response to a challenge. What's more, Pittsburgh's major companies have resisted the enormous centripetal pull of New York and built new headquarters in Pittsburgh. Chicago, in spite of great troubles, has also kept its dynamism. Dynamism? That sounds great. Atlanta is another city where an enlightened and forceful local citizenry took responsibility for their own town. Robert Woodward of Coca-Cola and a great many other men were involved there. That's about what it says about New Orleans. So it's just amazing how the leadership influences business and the lack of investment keeping change out. Specifically, he's talking about development of skyscrapers and different developments, but I think he's spot on. I think he's exactly spot on. So it's the political leaders' fault just to not allow change. You got any immediate thoughts on it? I can't hear you all of a sudden. Did you mute me?
I heard you were waiting it out for the next Mardi Gras. you expat.
That's sad. It really is.
No, I never really ever thought. I mean, I don't even think in those terms. Just like comparing cities, thinking about who had a head start, who had what resources. I mean, it's never even crossed my mind. I'm not a city a planner kind of thinking kind of guy. It's interesting. It really is. I guess intuitively though, we kind of already figured that. I mean, a city's just an aggregate, a collective of a group of people, and the city just represents the people's thoughts and actions. We are what we make. I guess
they get
too. I mean,
just the power structure is not obvious, I guess. It's a underbelly of people that make the winks and nods for investment. And then Lee Kuan Yew, I mean, he just turns it, he says, well, everything's open for discussion. Lee Kuan Yew? Yeah, Lee Kuan Yew. He just says, let's blow it wide open. Nobody's corrupt. We're gonna borrow some money from y'all. And that's the populace. He said, we need to borrow some money, which means a bond.
Yeah.
And he invested wisely. And the main thing is business friendly. I mean, the word that you hear is that Disney wanted to open up in New Orleans before he opened up in Orlando, but he gave up. He threw his hands up. He says it's too corrupt.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I think all those old guard places, all those. I'm surprised he said that Chicago was open to investment and keeping up with the times.
What was that?
When was that written? Feels like the 50s, doesn't it? He went broke too. I mean, he's not without, but he developed the property that the UN sits on. That was a where you distilled and the meatpacking district. I mean, it was just where the slaughterhouse area in New York. He redeveloped that to the where the UN sits now.
Wow.
Like warehouses and meatpacking facility. 1970 is when this was. But I think in today's age, you might hear about it as tax incentives for industry to come in. I mean, I think that's how cities do it.
Mm-hmm.
And New Orleans tried. I mean, 10 or post Katrina, 15, 17 years ago, they came up with a parish-wide thing to the sales crew to put the best foot forward. But one of the big shipbuilding places, it's in Harvey, one of the big shipbuilding facilities. I think they finished out their government contracts with whatever destroyers they made, and then it's for sale in New Orleans. Really? It's just I think it's a gamble. If you're going to do business in New Orleans, it's a gamble.
I don't know. I think that a place like Singapore almost has a leg up because of its sovereignty or almost its loneliness. Like it has to figure something out.
That's exactly right.
New Orleans is going to have its own. I mean, it's a part of Louisiana. It's going to have outside influence. It's going to have federal influence. It's doing. The famous thing about like Louisiana that I remember growing up is that they wouldn't raise the drinking age. Because they wanted to keep it at 18. Well, all the roads just fell to shit because they weren't getting those federal dollars. And finally, they screamed, "Uncle, we got to get that federal." So they raised it to 21. And we were all SOL. Like, oh man, now we got to wait a year. But that's always going to happen. There's always going to be, and without having just that sovereignty of like, wait a minute, what do we want to do? Not what are these people going to do for us or to us. It's hopeless, man. It's always going to be penetrated by some other motive, some other. Yeah. Because the government's always hiring, dude. The government's always there, ready to take you under their wing and buy your allegiance.
Which causes you to concede and take government funds and contort yourself to what money interests want.
I think eventually, because the government, like if you look at the roads in Louisiana, that burden just they couldn't do it. Eventually they got to change. So Uncle Sam steps in and brings us back into the fold.
It's just like a never-ending bad addiction is the pander for federal money.
Yeah.
And not be not be sovereign in some. I mean, it needs investment, but it does need a lump sum of money to become viable for investment for private dollars. And that's usually infrastructure, workforce, tax incentives, but it's just, they got a gob of money blaming Katrina for their infrastructure dying and the rebuilding and big dump trucks being heavy on their street. But there's nothing to show for it. There's just you can't party every night and get good grades not doing your homework. Can't watch TV every night and not do your homework and expect good grades.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those vicious cycles.
This is going to be a party town. And even that seems to be drying up.
That'd be cool if the new crowd doesn't party as much. I think they drink less.
They do.
They do more fentanyl, less drinking.
I mean, it is a cool town, but I never thought about kind of how many resources they had. I heard a speaker one time talk about the United States, how lucky we were to really have no enemies on this side, on this hemisphere. Nothing's going on. We have two of the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, these two huge waterways we can traffic, and then to our north and south, we just got friendlies, all these resources. I mean, when you laid it out, it was like, I don't know if you ever played the game Risk, but it was like, whatever you do, don't try to hold Europe, start in Australia and spread up, but it was like you had all these enemies around you everywhere. Like people in Europe compared to who we are, like we're so set, man. We have everything. Safe borders, good shipping lanes, friendly neighbors. We control this whole, North and South America. But I hadn't thought about that, just different individual cities. And I definitely never thought about all the water around New Orleans being a benefit. There's water for everything. Yeah, except for drinking. But I guess it is. I mean, it is at the base of the biggest waterway. I mean, the shipping lane in the U.S., third largest river in the world. But
I didn't try to focus on it. I'm just saying the political will of the power structure makes or breaks over time. I mean, it's not overnight, but over time, just the mental model of how you're going to do business affects how industry and money comes to your city.
Yeah. There's no doubt.
The other thing I've been thinking about is passive housing. You're talking about strong cities, and that crossed your radar, but passive housing, if you look in it, it's almost energy, what do you call it, net zero? That's what they're approaching, net zero energy, meaning just mad insulated house, taking the energy use as an envelope, and looking at heat bridges. I mean, they were like super thick walls, and considering the positioning of a house and having super insulated, I think is the way to consider it. But even down to how a 2x4 connected from the outside to the inside would be a heat bridge. So that plank touching the outside and inside could be an energy bridge to wick energy into and out of the structure. But they're getting crazy efficiency ratings, and I don't pretend to understand the global warming or climate change, but you can definitely reduce with some forethought and a little bit more investment. You can create much less energy use for your own pocketbook, but just for humanity in general. If you're less reliant on fossil fuels to heat and cool your place. So it's kind of neat. I think there's a ton of resources on it, but it's out there. I'm just thinking about my next move after this. If I go find a piece of land up in the hills a little bit.
What do y'all want to do?
Probably have some regular income that you don't have to stand on your head 60 hours a week to get at, to manage things properly, to exit. I think to liquidate out of New Orleans, stop giving all of it to the government.
Yeah, but I'm saying, let's say that you were out of New Orleans right now. It's done. I mean, what's Shangri-La for you? What's the promised land?
I think
like 60 acres outside in the middle of nowhere with goats and children?
Something like that. Something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. How about you?
I don't know, man. We got family here. I got my sisters that are both single moms. And you know, the universe has blessed us in Jackson. I mean, we've literally made chicken salad out of chicken shit. You know, like we've done it. Because we didn't have anything. I mean, you know, my background and Rachel's background. I mean, there was nothing. Like
yeah.
And I'm well aware that the reason that's able to happen is because we live in a slop hole. You know, like nobody, like we got to be crazy to buy this stuff, and we're just that kind of crazy. We've done it. But now we're here. We got some roots, and like just Rachel just went into the Fondren area to grab some food, and she's like, "Fondren's crazy. Somebody's playing at Doolin Hall, and I don't know what's going on, but every restaurant was filled. I mean, there's 30 restaurants up the road from us, and for Jackson and for Mississippi, there's no other place like that. So it's like, all right, you know, we live in the last state, you know, the last city in the last state in the union. It's last in everything, but we live in the coolest part of it.
Yeah,
and we've got roots, and we've got. But it's kind of like you in New Orleans. I just don't think we have that. Like, no matter how bad the political spectrum is in New Orleans or whatever, you still have like the sea levels and the hurricanes that are bearing down on you. And I think that it's the combination of those two things that are just like, this is untenable. Like I can't fight both. Whereas we've got crap politics, but as far as environment, we're not dealing with too bad of, you know, it's not great, but it's not that. It's not New Orleans bad. Like when a hurricane comes, I fear for other people. I'm not worried for ourselves. So anyways, it's getting better. You know, we've got JX and Waters taken over by the feds, and they're
really? They took over?
Oh yeah.
Is that recent?
It's been about a year.
Mm-hmm.
About a year. Yeah, but
they're like, no, you need water.
Gotta have that, guys. You gotta have water. Yeah. And then lastly, you know, Rachel's parents are on the coast and my mom's in Hattiesburg. I mean, like they're at that age where if we leave, we probably won't ever spend time with them again. You know, we're near them now, so we don't want to do that.
No, I think y'all got the ability to buy a plane ticket. I mean, that's kind of nice whenever you muck your way out of your current situation, you can get things kind of level the plane off after your ascent, you know, and reach cruising altitude.
Yeah.
You can get out of town for a minute.
Not having kids makes it too that we don't have to worry about school district. That's huge, man. Yeah, the safety for children. That's big. What are we going to do? So, I mean, there's times I get frustrated. I'd love to live in North Carolina. I'd love to live someplace where I enjoy hiking and getting out, Montana or something. And we might do that eventually. But right now,
I think y'all are in the middle of eating the, you know, y'all are taking on a lot. I have the perception that y'all are just skiing over your skis.
Yeah, leaning out into the future.
So I don't know if you're able to take some moments of solace and just one foot in front of the other, but I can't believe it's fun, but I'm just trying to appreciate the moment. Have you had those moments in your life when you look back and you're like, wow, I cannot believe I did that? There's that all you think about when you look up your efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it already. I mean, it was 8 or 9 years ago. I was spying on Walter Walford. He commandeered my section at a restaurant and started doing deals, started doing Wally deals. And they took my section and they bought like 2 beers, like 20 people, and didn't tip me. And I was just sitting there getting this content. Like, what are these guys talking about? Yeah, so it's bewildering to me. I mean, the butterfly effect of just one small event, one small thing is just like turned into a whole lifestyle. I mean, I haven't had a job in 5 years now. Rachel hasn't either. She's got an MBA. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was her life path, was to get a great job and stick with it for 40 years. She went to college for that. That was just like, all right, let's get some Airbnbs, man. F it, let's do this. So, I mean, it blows my mind even today. And then just the potential. I mean, we were talking about, we met with Walter the other day. He had a little small group together, and we were talking about partnering up. And I was like, I want to partner with somebody. I'd love to sell like a half portion off of one of these sober living houses so we could recapture some equity and give somebody some cash flow. But I just don't want to go through the trouble of a dual tax return. He was like, just give him an option. Just give him an option to get. And I'm just like, I knew that would work, but I hadn't thought of it in so long, and I don't know how to ink it up. But it's like, that stuff just blows my mind. Just like giving somebody an option, or even maybe a lease with the right to sublease, or maybe who knows? But just figure it out. Like, that blows my mind. So it's not only am I blown away by the past, but also like that's why I'm in this business, because we can do pretty much whatever we want to do if your partners and your tenants want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing. It's fine. It's even if it's not financial, like, I don't have all the money in the world. At least I can figure out how to make it and do it, and not be stuck to somebody's job. So that was cool. That was super cool.
And what's Walter want to do now? Sounds like he's got some wind in his sails.
I'm not sure if he's just kind of going for just relevancy, or if he's actually hungry for something. I mean, I think it's kind of, I don't know. That dog can hunt, man. He's going to sniff. He wants to do stuff. I don't know if he's legacy building or what, but he'd like to find lenders. He'd like to find partners. And I think he just, he likes heading up the meeting. He likes being there. He likes heading it up. There's no doubt
That's
about it.
That's what I think.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And that's cool, because he does a great job at it. I mean, he's the maestro. Yeah.
Right.
That's a skill, man. I mean, that's a talent.
I don't even think he knows why it works for him. Is that cruise got any traction? The Nardone cruise, the Tanya Collins?
Yeah, they're doing it. They're going. I think they're all leaving right now to head out for it. What I really want to get into is I want to get a small mastermind going of people that are in real estate, that are not just the FFN style cruise, the TED Talk style cruise, where everybody just kind of shows up and you've got different speakers. It's cool. It's great. But it can get extremely schizophrenic, because there's a lot of different things going on. A lot of different personalities, a lot of different ideas. And I miss we're talking about this, and people who are interested in this topic, let's come dive deep into it. If you look around for like masterminds or even coaches, they're ridiculously expensive. I mean, it's like, 20, 30 grand to be like to be the Brandon Turners of the world, or the collective genius. There's nothing just small. And I don't know why that is. I guess it's because there's just not a lot of juice in the squeeze. Nobody wants to do it because it's not really a money-making endeavor. It's really not. But at the same time, like, I need that. I want that. I had a little bit of it when Walter was doing things at the Love Shack. Catching those where people would just be talking about, hey, we're talking this weekend about growing small dollar IRAs. Let's talk about that. How to do it legally, how to do it safely, how to do it equitably. And it was amazing, to get those juices flowing. Or we've been to some short-term rental masterminds. Those are really, 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 really good. That kind of gets off the rails, though, because there's different branches to that tree. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. There's true vacation rental, or there's just STR, like corporate rentals. And those two animals are completely different. So that's like, that doesn't really work.
I think people have solved that problem with the subgroup, the private coffee conversations within a RIA. Is it true?
I mean, I don't know. We don't have a strong. That's why I'm so pumped about Walter's group. We don't have a strong Rio. Like we don't have anything going on here.
Yeah.
And Mississippi in our area is like, we're behind everything 20 years. So, I mean, like all this stuff is like Airbnb, they could just started happening like pandemic time is when it blew up, really. Everybody hadn't really even heard of it. Whereas it was 10 years. Y'all had outlawed it 3 times in New Orleans by the time we got our first one.
Yeah.
Like y'all had cycled through it over and over and over again. And we were just like,
right.
We didn't even know how to spell it yet. Like Airbnb what? Like so anyhow.
Is there any players that you'd like to get closer to in your city? Or you need outside thoughts? I mean, when you listen to Bigger Pocket seems like these outliers that have been identified, like we need to talk to you. You're an outlier. You've achieved it. You're above the mean. So and they either got a message, you're selling something, and you've achieved a certain status, and you're on this, and you're pumping something, or you're just an outlier that runs past the finish line. I think I kind of understand what you're saying with this crew that you lean on. And are you talking about a mastermind with fresh ideas, or just listen to you and care about you?
Both, really. Both. I just don't think I don't see enough of them. I see that for the smaller players, the people who might be doing like 5 to 10 deals a year, or trying to get like 5 to 20 rentals and kind of catch their own, like kind of the small and mighty real estate investor.
You've read that book? You heard about it?
Yeah, I've been listening to him, and I read it.
Yeah, he appeared before the South Carolina thing. I think that was one of his.
Coach Carson.
That guy's from South Carolina, anyway.
Yeah.
But what was he talking about?
So kind of what you were talking about, like the Bigger Pockets thing, is like it seems like everybody's solving to become Brandon Turner, or everybody's solving to become Grant Cardone. It's like I'd never ever wanted to be Grant Cardone. I like being able to work on a house, sell a house, live in a house, hack a house, whatever. I'm looking for something different. And I felt like that. Anyway, so Carson's saying, hey, that's okay. Get 10 free and clear rentals that are each rented for $2,000 a month. Now you've got, if half of that money is going to your pocket, you've got a really nice income in America if everything's paid for.
Yeah.
You make $150,000 a year after taxes. Like, dude, you can do some stuff if you're financially responsible. So that's kind of his thing, is be small and mighty. Not big and. Because a lot of these guys that you see that might act like they're making a lot of money, it's big hat, no cattle, man. Like, they're just running around from deal to deal. They're interest rate sensitive. They're whatever. I've got 0.5% in a 100-unit apartment complex or whatever. They're just deal junkies. So anyway,
I think a lot of the traffic jam is people that are just drunk on hope. Like, it's out there somewhere. Guilty as charged. Just. What are they doing? Like, I guess they call it FOMO. But there's somebody out there who'll take your money real quick, and they're phone calls away. Like, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
The guy that did ClickFunnels, I heard him talking about it, said people really want you to talk shit about their enemies with them, and that's a big. If you can ally yourself. This is like human psychology. Like, people really want you to agree with them, and then help them talk shit about their enemy. If you can hack a storyline, they'll pay for your ClickFunnels. You're like, jeez. Like, giving a shit. And who you choose. Really, there's I don't know what author said it, but all professions are the enemy of the laity. The laity being the common man. And marketers it's just bleh. And when I think about a, a realtor, somebody help you sell your house. What's their goal? Are you a production number? And I think you could solve a lot of problems if you really care about somebody. If your technical acumen isn't 100%, average intelligence, but you really have a vested interest in somebody coming out okay. I think that's the X factor.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a tangent of something, but yeah, your problem and what you're after with your investing goals. I mean, real estate investing. I mean, it gets boring. I mean, it just trying to be efficient. I think I've just wanted to be efficient with my time and get most of it. And I think that's what people that kind of filter towards this genre, I think that's really what they're after, is to either get their get their spouse unhooked from a job, or to be efficient with their time. And then I think you go through phases of like, well, who do I need to be? What role do I need to play to get there?
I mean, I think a lot about what I want to do, 10 years ago when I was first kind of putting my toe in this vast ocean of real estate, I had a really simple goal, man. It was a really simple goal. I mean, I had one house and I was renting rooms out to guys in the business, restaurant guys. We were making money. It wasn't a lot, but I was living for free. And I bought another couple houses from Jay, some tax lien properties. It was cool. But I was like, man, if I'm making $5,000 or $6,000 a month and I got a place to come home to, like, I'd be good. Let's just do this. And I got married, and she would have been happy with that same thing. But we just kept going. We just kept building. It's fine. It's cool. But it's kind of like, get back to some kind of like, what's a goal that I'm really shooting for, rather than just what could be done. And so I think about like, what would I do if I had the money I wanted to have? And for me, I like writing, I like reading, I like doing this. I like talking to really smart people about engaging topics, whether it's, Houston versus New Orleans from a 1970 perspective. I like that stuff. My wife don't want to talk about it. She's back there watching, Call the Housemaids or whatever. But like, I like it. And so it's, my money is to give me freedom or to give me access to people that are going to get my juices going. It's not to have money. It takes money, but that's not the end goal. So I don't know. That's kind of what I've been thinking. I like the content stuff. I like creating. I like writing. I like reading. I love getting new ideas and trying new stuff. And I also think we live in an age where there's so much information out there, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or classes where you can find stuff out and try stuff. And that's super cool. Yeah, but I'm definitely not in the game for the sake of the game. Like, I mean, the game is to serve a standard of living for me. And I think for most of us. Hell, I was just talking to a guy today and he was like, my parents told me I just need to make $1 million, get everything paid for, and then live on the interest. And I was like, what kind of interest are you trying to get? And he's like, if I get 8 or 9% interest and everything's paid for, then I can pretty much do whatever I want. I can go find a passion job. I can go work at the Humane Society, or I can give flying lessons or whatever, but just a real basic job, because I'll have $1 million and I can live on the interest. And I just thought about, like, he's not an investor. He's not a real estate guy. He's just a guy. But I just thought about like how like idyllic, how peaceful that sounded. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, I'm just going to go make a mill, put it in this money market account, like, I'm going to go get a job walking Labradors, It's going to be
9%
awesome.
Tax free. Yep. Oh, that's great.
But to give English lessons to immigrants, it's going to be so cool, dude. Like, it's going to be chill, living off this interest. And I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be cynical about it. I was like, yes, heck yeah. But I mean, he's 300K there. He's 40 years old, and it's like, go for it, dude. You're, another 15 years. He's like, yeah, 15 years is right on. That's what I'm going to do. So
just that time on task over time. I, I do think people led around the nose. I think that just, I don't know how people are going to, I think people are dumping a whole lot of time on social media, time that should perhaps be better spent on. I just don't know how the new crowd's going to bear down and get to it if what I hear on the news, some sensationalism on the news is like housing crunch, unaffordability. I peruse some for some podcasts.
Hold on one second, I gotta grab a book.
Yeah. Gonna show you that.
yeah, it's not good.
I don't think I had the cast last time we spoke.
No, it's a cool cast. So this book right here, Johann Hari, Stolen Focus: Why You Can't Pay Attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's got he's written some really good stuff, but he does his research, man. He's got some data in here about how much time like an average employee actually spends at work on task. It's going to blow your mind how much, and it makes sense. I mean, but an hour a day out of a 7-hour workday, you know, like we're not really focusing on anything. It has to do with some of it is social media, some of it is just the internet, some of it's our light patterns, our circadian rhythm, just different stuff. But there's a bunch of things that are destroying our productivity and our ability to focus. And the interesting thing though is somebody did a study on attention just over like the past 150 years, and it's not just the social media or the computers. It's been happening just with technology in general.
Yeah.
The steam engines and cotton gins or whatever. Like it's slowly been, and the way they could do that is that he was reading colloquialism, seeing how long words lasted, and seeing like he did some metric by what
the etymology of words
somehow. And he could tell how long people were holding on to certain themes or certain ideas, and they started changing faster and faster and faster. So the faster the lexicon changes, he's saying the faster. You know, and that makes sense how we're coming up with different stuff today, you know, of emojis and dittos and whatever, you know, whatever it is. Anyways, I say that to say it's like, you know, our focus is an asset to be protected, and our attention is the new currency. I mean, that's what we're doing right now is we're making possible content, or we're doing content for ourselves right now. Like Marcus, you are my content right now, you know, like I'm talking to a screen. I wish, but that's what it is. And the longer we look at something, the more likely we are to either buy their product or use their service. That's it. And golly, I mean, he makes a point here is like the 3 people in the world who, you know, Microsoft, Facebook, and it was somebody else, but they've got like the total net worth of like 5 South American countries, and all they are is they're profiting from what's it called surveillance capital. You know, they're watching us building digital footprints, digital profiles about us, and selling us junk. And I'm like, dude, did I even want to get into real estate, or did they just sell me on that? Like they put bigger pockets in my head.
Yeah.
You know, freaking heck, here I am. You know, what would I have been if I'd never gotten a smartphone? You know, probably happy. It's like that whole question: do you want money or you want to be happy? But like, I'll take the money.
I was just thinking of like projecting well, I kind of like to ride planes, and it's not gonna be my generation maintaining this MFers. I sure hope they focus in on airplane maintenance when they're in those in those trade schools. Please pay attention.
Yeah.
But I mean, it takes a fair amount of time on task to get into a house, to save up your money from your dead-end job, to go down and get a loan and do a little fixing on it. But if that attention is elsewhere, building somebody else's dream, then that's less time for yourself. And that's my only hope for the future generation. I really felt old. I have never felt old. But then this milestone of 50 is coming up this spring, and it's like, oh yeah, and I fell off a ladder and broke my wrist. So, yeah, I'd like to provide a service. I think affordable housing is a noble-ish endeavor. You can figure out how to show people how to not get strung out on, redo something. I think that there's some nobility in repurposing a house in a central-ish location, and making it kind of easier on the environment just through a little bit of strategic thinking. That sounds kind of neat. And it's sad that work is enjoyable. And one of me and the kids read The Richest Man in Babylon, and one of the tenets is make work your friend. So I hope the next generations can not just be total anti-work, and play into the prognosticator of Renter Nation and the UBI, Universal Basic Income, and just throw up their hands and become part of some scenario. Because these types of industry and digital world, they are going to be the new state, even though it's not. They're not going to be ruling conquerors. They'll have some amount of control over our minds, at least.
They definitely already do. Brave New World, man.
There's a book by that name, right? And what? I don't know that book.
Oh, I mean, there's the teleprompter on the wall, man. It's Aldous Huxley, and he's like, it's this thing is watching us, Big Brother, always happening, and it tells us what to do, and it gives us news problem, and it's eerily spot on.
And when was that book written?
Gosh, the 50s.
Okay. Like Truman Show thing, or Matrix. Does that TV control you?
It's 1932, dude. I mean, that's crazy. So there wasn't even TVs in houses yet when he was. It's just insane.
So he wrote a story about a screen watching.
Yeah.
Before there were televisions.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, citizens are engineered through artificial wounds, and children are indoctrinated programs into predetermined classes or castes. Lena Crow, she's a hatchery worker, is popular and sexually desirable. A hatchery.
Yeah.
But Bernard Max, a psychologist, is not. He is short in stature and a member of a high caste, which gives him an inferiority complex. They fall in love.
Was it a successful book?
It's one of the best books of all time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we had required reading, growing up, and I'm reading that, Lord of the Flies, and everything else. Like when that stuff came across the desk. It's the same stuff, though, man. I mean, it's just the government and big companies eventually become one. They might seem like they're fighting, but they're not. Like, we don't have free, business to do what it wants to do. And I don't know that we really want that. I mean, look what Facebook and what these companies actually do if they just are given complete reign. Just do whatever they want to do. Sell our info, collect our info, keep us up at night. It's nice to think like, everybody should just have freedom to do whatever they want to do in the business world. It's like, man, those mindless monsters will terrorize us. Like they don't care. I think about like pharmaceutical companies, you know, like they just make up medicine, dude. And they're like, oh, this is to get your blood sugar low. It's like, well, it doesn't really do that, but it'll make you lose all your baby fat. Like, oh, it's a new weight loss drug. They just rename it. They rebrand it. And all of a sudden it's the new Ozempic. Oh yeah, it's great. Like, dude, it's eating you. It's like a flesh eating like serum. Why are you putting that in your body? I've got some friends that have done it. They just look like, they look horrible. Like, what are you doing? What's the new thing? They do.
I think it's like synthesized monitor lizard venom or something like that.
It's horrible, dude. I mean, for some people, I'm sure it has an effect, but some of these people, it's like Schindler's List. My friends, I haven't seen in a year. And I see them like, what happened to you? Like, oh, but on this new stuff, man, it's amazing.
You just have to take one shot in your stomach with a 3-inch needle every day.
Yeah. Thanks, Pfizer, or whoever. Yeah.
Did you get rabies? No, I just got it.
Like, you looked good before, you know? Like, no, this is better. They just rebrand this stuff and sell it to us and shove it down our throats, you know? So.
All right. Well, is that enough for tonight? Did we figure anything out?
That was awesome.
How do you feel about guests? I really like my accountant. I just as a guy, and he's.
Let me ask you: is he doing tax prep or is he doing bookkeeping?
He does tax prep.
Okay, and y'all are doing all your in-house bookkeeping.
I know.
Yeah.
Y'all is not true.
Huh?
Y'all is not a true statement. It's.
Yeah, she's doing it. She's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the thing, is that Rachel needed to get a tax prep person. And we got one, and then we're like, well, let's get him to do the bookkeeping too, and that didn't really work out because they got too much stuff going on. Like, and I think I've kind of figured out, like, tax strategists and tax prep people are not bookkeepers. Bookkeepers is extremely menial, tit for tat, get it in QuickBooks, just very, very so anyhow.
And that's what you needed.
We
time
did.
suck of that.
We did, yeah. We needed some new systems. I mean, Rachel's a trained bookkeeper, but there's new stuff out there. Like, when we heard this guy speak, he spoke at Walter's thing, and he's like, you know, QuickBooks Online now has an app, so you can just take a photo of the receipt, and it goes straight to your bookkeeper. He's going to have a virtual assistant that's going to be coding that stuff. Once he gets everything set up, he's going to have somebody that can just put that in for him, and then he's going to go back over it, reconcile the P&Ls, reconcile the balance sheets, give them to us, and tell us what's going on. Which is great. I mean, if he can pull it off, it's going to be amazing.
Mr. Winston's not like that. But I will tell you that I tried to explain an inherited rot, and he just said, I don't want to know about it. I mean, he was nonplussed. He's like, all right, you lost thousands of dollars. So that's easy to put down. Minus. Yeah. But what I'm saying, I mean, he's just got wisdom, and I think he's just, I don't know, old accountants, they're just kind of interesting, kind of in the same way. They're like, they all seem kind of overworked and a certain level of humility. And the opposite of the rock star accountants that we see on the boats. I mean, they're not marketeers. I see the marketeer accountant like the marketeer attorney. You know, just the marketing is a profession in itself. But an old school accountant, they're like pretty meat and potatoes from what I've known of him. But I would like to talk to him, actually, and just wisdom for wisdom's sake, that you couldn't. I don't know if he'll do it. I might just say no thanks. But when I've gotten him on the phone a handful of times, I just leave the conversation. I think that was a good conversation.
What makes you think of him?
Just wise, just wisdom. I think that's it. I mean, his personal life is. His wife passed a few years ago, and he had some health things going on. And have you seen the movie Sing? The Sing. It's animated. I have kids, so I see it. But The main Matthew McConaughey koala is the theater troupe leader, but he's got an assistant who's underpaid and overworked, Miss Crawley.
Mm.
Like his Mr. Winston's assistant is not in super health, but he keeps her employed. Anyway, he's an interesting character, but I think I'll ask him. I'm kind of sure he'll say no, but I'm going to ask him. But I mean, the people that he's represented in a legal fashion and an accounting fashion are, to hear him talk, just like high flyers. And I don't think I'll mention any names, but he's represented them in these certain effects. But I don't know. Do you got anybody you'd like? I mean, Wally would come on. We'd ask him.
He might.
Nah, I don't want to do that. Is there a crowd?
Y'all do. Yeah.
Will my ego be stroked at all?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really talk to. I mean, I love hearing about what people are doing, but as far as like that old sage, I don't know. Maybe Leon Johnson. He's a guy who likes to share, and is kind of, you got to find a guy that's passionate about sharing. You know, that's passionate about kind of passing on the information. I mean, some guys are either, they might be quiet, they might not have the personality for it, it might not just be their thing, but then every now and then you'll meet a guy that's not a salesperson necessarily, but wants to help. And Leon's one of those guys. He's not really trying to sell anything, but he's always open. He always wants to talk. Scott Britton was like that whenever he's around, but he's kind of elusive, man, kind of the snow leopard. Yeah. But when you get him, he talks. You know, he'll talk. He's not trying to sell you anything, but he'll talk. So there's some guys. Keith Lanke's like that. He's got some good insight.
You keep up with him?
The holidays, we said thumbs up and hello, and every now and then I run an idea by him. Yeah, he'd do something.
I've got Mike Gunn on the phone a couple of times. It was pleasant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He wants to teach. He's good. And he's risen to the top. He would like to do a deal, but he doesn't need to get you to buy in. You know, that's kind of what you're looking for. Somebody doesn't need the buy-in. They're just like, yeah, let's talk shop. Let me tell you what I saw. Let me tell you what I've done. And Mike's exactly got that. Right. Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm always interested to talk to guys who have seen like 5 or 6 cycles, and like, what are the patterns or what are the things you've seen over and over and over again? Kind of like when we're talking to an old school bookkeeper, it's like, just do your books and don't do anything shitty. You know, like if you didn't have a good year, fine, but don't do anything. Don't try to pencil whip the IRS. Like, pay your taxes, do what you're supposed to do, because all of a sudden that thing turns into this big trouble. You know, all of a sudden you're doing Fed time, man, trying to get out of it. It's like, no, don't. So if it's bad, it's a bad year. It's a bad year. Figure it out. But most of those guys have gone through bad times, and if they're still around, they did the right thing, not the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Occam's razor. If you're still around.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, I'm open to your thoughts. It'd be cool to. I mean, I enjoyed not thinking of like an audience. I mean, that was actually freeing, and I think I'm more cognizant of like consuming stuff of quality to filter it into a conversation.
Hey, while I've got you on, so what do I need to do to get some information and you to kind of get some SOPs going for this sober living thing? Like, what can I jot down? What can I be?
No, I would like to ask you. I would like to, I think, putting time on the books and saying, all right, here's step 1. And we'll reduce it to a document, I think.
Okay.
Together.
All right.
Like a decision tree type thing. For example, it actually gives me a little chance to see if this records. So Tell me when you can see it.
Yes.
see it?
Yep.
Like you have a Emporium internet monopoly that is not the awesomest.
Are you in Notion right now?
Mm-hmm. What was that saying? Was that on your end?
That was your invite.
Yeah.
A Notion notification.
Oh, on your phone?
Mm-hmm. But I don't want to do it on my phone.
Oh, you don't have to. If you have a, you can log in online.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm seeing you do that in real time.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can add to it too, and I can see real time. So, that kind of thing. And I would go as far as you can add uh, the working documents, or you can have a static PDF. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think scheduling a couple of those
Yeah.
sessions would be fruitful, and it might help concrete your role as well. Here's the dynamic in New Orleans: is this guy? He signed a regular residential long-term lease, and he put his girlfriend. He moved up from his parents' house and added his young girlfriend as not a lease signer, but she was added as a co-resident and
Mm-hmm.
approved person to live there. And she went and got a bank account and used that address. Meanwhile, their relationship went sideways and multiple police calling, and then she forgot to take the keys and went outside, and he like, okay, bye. We talked about you leaving, remember? And she was like, oh, it wasn't today. Andrew called the police and said, "Look at my bank account. It has this address." And the cops instructed him to let her back in.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a problem if somebody went off the program and said, "No, my bank statement says I live here."
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be a problem for your organization? Or
Absolutely. Yeah.
how is it not a problem for you? How have you solved that potential issue?
We live with the risk. I mean, a more domestic, lover's quarrel or somebody who's actually living in a house is a little different. We've had people who didn't want to leave, and I know we're going to have more people that don't want to leave, and we've got, plans for it, how to get them out. But I mean, when crazy comes, I don't know how you're going to do it, but it's definitely,
You keep some scraps of carpet to roll them up in and duct tape. And
so right now our plan is to get them out of the house as quickly as possible, and hey, let's get you out of the house. We got to, you don't need to be here. Let's take you to a friend's house. Let's take you to the hospital. Let's take you let's just ride around and smoke cigarettes and talk, but you got to get out of here because these people are sober and you're not. So that's the main thing.
So public shaming is
no public shaming, but even like a cash for keys, like, hey, let me get you a hotel room. You don't want to be here, but try to use our sales persuasion techniques to talk them out. But
so you interview them properly and kind of get some
interview.
Don't let the wrong person in and try to project.
Oh, we don't have professional I mean, when these people come in, man, they're broken and they're normally eager to find a safe place. They want to keep their head down and get sober. Like you can see that about them. Like the first couple of days, they're into it, man. It's a week later or a month later, they might mess up. And most people, if you're messing up, you don't want to be around a bunch of people that are trying to do right. I mean, most of them wean themselves out. It's not like they're trying to stay in this place. Most of them that do want to stay when they're doing wrong and might give you trouble, it's just because they're scared. They don't know what to do. So we're going to try to get you back into treatment. So we've got lots of different things that we're trying to do, but it's very rare that we're going to have somebody that's like, no, I want to stay here and I want to get high. It's like, that's just not really gonna. They don't want to do that either. And that's because we stay on top of the houses. Like the majority of people want to do the deal. But that guy who kicked his girlfriend out and she had either clothes in the closet or mail saying that was her address. That's what she's supposed to do. He can't just put her. I mean, she's a tenant. She lives even if she's not on a lease. She's supposed to be. No one should just get thrown out because he's ready for her to go. That's not cool. And we're the same way. Like we can't just throw people out. But we can diplomatically figure those things out. Whether it's get into a family's house, hell, I'll go buy them a crack hotel if they want to smoke crack. I know some crack hotels. For $50 a night, I can set you up, man. And if it's the safety of the rest of the tenants, I'll float that bill. I'm cool with that. But I'm going to get all your mail and all your clothes, and I'm going to throw them in there with you in the Mustang Hotel. So,
Why is that the perfect thing for a crack hotel?
Because it's real.
I stay at the Mustang. Or you stay at the Mustang. Mm-hmm. So all that is worth the extra dough.
Yeah, I mean that's probably going to be one out of 50 is going to give you trouble. And probably only 1 out of 5 of those are going to really know how to professionally play you, Oh.
Is your bullshit meter pretty strong?
Yeah.
A little bit gullible. No, man, I don't do anything. Okay, I believe you.
I mean,
the ride act's got to be pretty close to. Trust but verify, that type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we've got, I'm not really even talking to most of these guys. We've got house managers and then Chris and Rachel are doing a lot of the stuff. But normally in this arena, the troublemakers expose themselves pretty quickly because that's why they got in the situation they're in. They couldn't contain themselves. They couldn't control themselves. And so it's like, it normally obvious. It gets so bad Yeah, and they normally just self-cull. They take themselves out. That's how they got in treatment. So they got in jail. Like they didn't get in jail because they got thrown out of a sober living house. They got in jail because they went like, I'm going to jail. I'm gonna do some stupid shit. Like so they normally take themselves out. They really do.
I did invite that guy. I don't think that Great Falls, middle of nowhere thing's going to work, but I did reach out to that guy with that recovery center in Great Falls.
Yeah.
And he came over. He said, he's dropping the God bombs. I was in church, just praying, and then you called, that kind of deal. But he last April bought that commercial building, which he's listed on Google Business, and he just is trying to properly get the utilities and AC and electric permits, and is running into some problems with the city with compliance. But he talks about having customers. What I'm trying to tell you is that he wants to arbitrage this. He wants to pay market rent and run his business through it, which I don't know that that's going to be. I don't think that's the right house for location. Might be the right house. I don't think it's the right location, which I think is real important. I think Rod Hill's the place. They got some men's centers.
So he didn't have
who
you called wasn't a treatment center. It was a guy who aspires to do some sort of treatment sober living place, but it wasn't an up and running concern. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So I think you had that on the decision tree. The first thing, ID local customers. We want to find out, who are these people who are creating, making people who are going out wanting to be sober. They're treatment centers that are up and going, and trying to stay away from the religious stuff. Like anything that's super religious-y, they've probably drank some kind of Kool-Aid that you might not be able to get out of their system. You're trying to find people that are just like, I'm trying to get reassimilated into society, and I have no other evangelical or whatever concern. Those places that are super, and they're good places, they mean well, but there's different hooks in there. You're trying to find just a straight up, we're drug and alcohol center. We give people 30, 60, 90 days, whatever, and then we'll help them trying to find sober living. They're going to be much more business friendly and not, what are you about? Let's kumbaya this thing, So
they got a little money, and they're sincere about recovery. They might have family money until they can kind of figure it out and start getting some water over their gills and go forward and put in a job app.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes the treatment centers even pay some. Like sometimes it's part of it. Like they're gonna give them. They'll find you could work out something where they might pay for the first month. That the insurance could pay for it. And you could talk to either a counselor or intake person. Just start calling them and say, hey, I'm starting a sober living house. How many people are y'all looking to be in this area? Are you looking for beds or houses here?
Is that step one?
Absolutely, yeah. And then step one, part B, is calling other sober living houses and finding out what they're charging. So now, like, okay, I know how many people are looking for beds. I know where they're kind of going, and I know what the market rent is. And then drive by those sober living houses, like find like, hey, I'm looking for
compare.
Yeah, I mean, you might do some secret shopper shit, like, hey, my daughter's looking for my sister's looking for sober living. Can you tell me more about it? Just to get the info. Where you located, what do you cost?
Bedtime.
Rachel's outside whistling for the cat. Are you okay?
Whistling for the cat?
I know. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Olive.
That's why they mean the Hellcat.
But I could do that for you, man. Or we could do co-calls. If there was a way you wanted to record those, I'd be happy because I know a little bit of the jargon.
Yeah, hell
yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you could brain dump just on that page. I think what I just created from your eye. You have access to it.
Yeah.
Do you have such a document for your operation?
No. What kind of document?
What I just created.
What is documents you talk about?
Document of business. But if you replace yourself, could you hand off a manual and say, "Here's how you do it"?
So right here, I've got a signing packet. We've got like 20 different things that we distilled down into like 5 different documents. One's a lease, one's liability waivers, drug screenings, permission to speak to counselors and probation officers, that kind of stuff, But as far as like how to ID local, customers, outreach, no. Setting up property, how to furnish a property, no. No, we don't have it. We don't have anything. I mean, that's all just.
But you're learning. I mean, you got some knowledge just by doing it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like Rachel the other day bought these dressers that were just like, they weren't even dressers. They were just like plastic Rubbermaid. They look like really fancy cupboard stuff, but they're just perfect. So like if people spill drinks on it, because we were getting cheap stuff off Amazon, and it was like the fiberboard stuff or the cloth stuff just falling apart. It's like finding different furnishings that'll work and be kind of like that is a thing that works well. And then again, that's our certain house. Like I don't know, if you find these places that are like, yeah, man, we're cranking out. We've got 5 or 6 professional people that are getting out every month that need a place. You might have a completely different product. You might need to have like 1 king size bed in each room for $3,000 a room. And that's why talking to treatment centers are talking like it's so necessary. Like who do y'all have? Who's coming out of there? What's the client base look like? What do y'all need?
So if you recognize a need, so is arbitrage even part of your thought processes right now?
I think we'll have to eventually. Yeah. I won't be able to get the inventory that I necessarily want without arbitraging. I mean, I just can't afford it.
Yeah. That'll be a choke point.
Yeah.
Once you dial it in.
There's just not enough inventory. And even the inventory that I can find sometimes turns into a 3 or 6 month lag because I got to fix it up. It's like, that's a choke point. Like, okay, I found the house, but I got to find the fixer uppers. It's like, whereas finding a house that's up and running and rent ready, they want $1,800 a month for it, but I can make $4,200 a month. Like that's arbitrageable for sure.
So I brought it up to my foreman, my recent guy. He said, that's a damn good idea. I was in one. He was at a low point in his life and he checked himself into it. Paid $150 a week.
Yeah, cool.
And
so he's a success story.
6 months, and then like one day when nothing would go with a plate of chicken wings except for Coors Light, he came back and told on himself, and he said, "I'll pack up my stuff." And they say, "Well, I mean, tomorrow or the next day, be just fine." But he said it was a positive experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to see, man. Guys get their lives back together. And some of these girls, dude, like we got a house that's got 10 beds in it with women. It's all girls in this house. And like half of them are there for like 30 to 90 days as regulated by some sort of government, whether it's a probation officer, drug court, or judge. They've got to be there for a certain number of days to get their kids back. And dude, the fervor, the willingness, like what they're about, like, I mean, it's a lioness fighting for her cubs, man. Like it's real deal stuff. It's not some kid trying to get over on you because they want to smoke cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? No, this is a mom trying to get her freaking family back.
Yeah.
And like to see them do the deal, man, it's awesome, dude. And it's like 90 days, like I'm going home. We're high-fiving. We're like, yeah, go get your kids, go get your life back, Like it's amazing. It's not, and we're not like, oh my God, we lost a tenant. We missed a bet. Like, forget it. No, because for every mom that succeeds, man, there's 10 that are dying to find a place like that. It's like, in fact, we had a guy tell us, he's like, if you're doing that lower income stuff, like the $600-700 a month stuff, like your business is endless. Like, because nobody does that stuff.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
And you're experiencing it currently.
We are, but then again, we're not making the kind of money. I mean, like we have a lot of overhead, and I'm not really sure how it's going to pan out. Like whenever I want to hire a peer support specialist, I want to have people in the house. I think you can have just like a property manager. I think a property manager can manage like 40 houses. I think we can get a peer support specialist that could manage like 50 beds. And if I want to get 100 beds, that means I'd have 50 per peer support specialist. And that person would really take an active role in the residents' lives. You know, they're making sure that their work's going well. They're making sure their timeline.
A leader, a mentor.
Yeah, a real, you know, are
like
you paying?
breaks out their chart and said, well, you said you wanted to be here and how you progressing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Not just are you paying your rent, but why are you having a hard time? Like, what do you need to find a job? Is this happening? Is you having health stuff? So yeah, I think once that were to get going, I know there's a net profit, but I don't know what that's going to be. Right now, just like everything else, we're doing it all.
Why wouldn't this work for that boomer crowd that's going to age out?
I mean, I think that rodeo, I think that circus is definitely in town. There's people who are selling that, man. The assisted living thing, the co-living thing. I think there's somebody else on a Zoom call right now that's talking about just that for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I've heard some data about the whole concern about the silver tsunami is just like it's not quite playing. It might not play out like they're thinking it's going to play out.
No, they're not going to move unless they have to.
Right.
Some aren't going to incur the expense because the house is paid for, and yeah, they're just going to fall down the stairs one day. But till that day happens.
Yeah,
that's a wrap. They're not doing anything.
But I mean, I think the co-living, whether it's there's a color of, you know, assisted living or sober living or transitional living or whatever, there's a lot of different things. There's a bunch of opportunities out there. Mm-hmm. This is just something that with mine and Rachel's past, it just makes sense. Like, yeah. I'm not having to be phony about it. I'm not having to learn about it. It's like, I know this, like I get it. I've done it. I've lived it. Okay, let's do it. Which makes all the difference, you know, like.
Yeah, I just, I know you've got a passion about it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to enter in it the wrong way and not have it succeed just because I like to provide a service and I do care about people and I'm not all about the money. So I just wondered if it would be a fit.
I definitely think it's a fit for sure.
I don't have, that doesn't have to be part of my history to go forward with it.
No. No, in fact, so this lady from Bellhaven, she a conservative Christian, she just wrote this book called Curious, and the book is about she became a foster parent. And she was raising kids. The church and different people were sending to her. She started doing this thing, and she started figuring out some of these backgrounds about these mothers' lives of these foster kids, and kind of realized that the system for how we handle drug abuse and drug addiction and drug charges were actually making her life worse by creating more kids that need to be fostered. So that was kind of her inlet into this. So she took this like completely like new wave liberal like stance in this like she's a conservative Christian that looks through all this BS and was like, this is messed up. Like, we're making these people's lives worse because we're breaking families apart. And so she wrote this book called Curious that was inspired by Johann Hari wrote another book called Chasing the Scream. And it's about how the war on drugs has failed and how legalization, like prohibition is really, really bad. It's what creates the cartel. It's what's creating the crisis at the border. Prohibition created the gangsters and alcoholism, and now the same thing's happening today, and it's horrible. So anyway, she was talking about the same side of the coin from a different perspective. My point is that she's not a drug addict. She's not in recovery. She's somebody that can see what's really going on. And so you don't have to have like, oh, this is my story. We just need the participant to really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
To have empathy, to have true, like, oh, I see. And I might not be a criminal or a drug addict or on probation, but I get what's happening here. I think I have a solution. So that's the important thing.
The pain clinics, the bad guys?
Are pain clinics the bad guys?
Yeah.
I don't think there are any bad guys. I mean, everybody thinks trying to do the best they can. I mean, I think there's a use for everything at a certain time. So even even the cops. I mean, like the bad guys. I don't know that anybody's bad.
That's it. I just watched that thing on OxyContin. The drug maker that fleshed it out and got it through FDA approval and all that. Did you watch that?
There's some bad guys. Yeah, I mean those guys are the pirates, man. The Sackler type.
Sackler, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you watch that? Ferris
Mhm.
Bueller was Sackler.
Yeah.
That was a pretty powerful, emotive movie.
Yeah. Even those things, like going back to what we were just talking about government and big companies, change the whole course of entire cities. I mean, some of that stuff's just like huge. There's big plays happening, man. There's big stuff happening, and yeah, that's part of that. But as far as like individual players or bad kind of things, I mean, everything's got a place. I mean, you can't get rid of pain medication. I mean, like, I don't know if you had anything or need anything for your wrist.
That's the one thing I think doctors can do. They can get rid of pain.
Yeah.
There's a lot that people don't know about the body, but they can treat pain. So
yeah. And in his book Chasing the Scream, he talks a little bit about like how a lot of people they want to bring about prohibition because they think like intoxication is unnatural or just bad. But there's this one researcher who goes out and he looks in nature for like animals that get intoxicated, and lo and behold, elephants eat rotten fruit.
Yeah, on the riverbanks, getting high
like,
as a kite.
There's a bunch of animals that do different things, and then it even talks about as kids, we would spin on baseball bats, and get dizzy just to have a different perspective. I mean, like there's this thing that Indians and different cultures have always done different things to have different experiences. So it's once more, it's like it's not necessarily bad. It's just I overused it. I did it on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays. I mean, I used to say, like, if I could smoke crack successfully, I'd do it every day, like it'd be awesome. But it's not, it might have had a place if it just didn't hit my addictive personality.
You talked it last time, it's underlying trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. So, are the pain clinics bad? I mean, I've seen some people that do really, really well on that regulated kind of doled out medication. And if it keeps them alive for a little longer until they can make a choice to do something different, go for it,
Got it.
Cool. In fact, you'll have that. You'll have people that you have to decide, are you going to do MAT, which is medically assisted treatment, or are you going to be stone cold sober? So like we allow people to stay in our houses on Suboxone. And I would recommend if you're trying to do this thing, you probably need to be open to that idea.
I saw my cousin, man. So I had
How
a
is
stalking
he?
horse. He's alive,
Yeah.
and I don't know exactly. I reach out on a few times a year. I see him keeping a job. I don't know if he's transferred from that environment to an apartment or not. I don't know. But I see a relationship, and I see him being thankful.
Good.
So that guy from when he was 7, you heard through the grapevine that he's talking about hurting himself. I mean, it's been from the jump. I don't know if it was. I mean, it had to be parents breaking up and that, but both of his parents killed themselves behind some chemicals. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably where you got some guidance.
Yeah, it's like the nurture versus nature. It's like she got both, dude. It's obviously in the DNA, and he got taught it. Like the hands he was dealt were not going to be really good. So, well, good, man. I'd forgotten what was this. Anyways, I'd forgotten that we had gone through that. And we had
fentanyl. He blinked out in traffic and got hit with Narcan, if I'm saying it right, a couple times on the scene. I took a picture of him in the bed. I didn't think I was going to see him after that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this is the last time I see him.
Yeah.
And his wife had stayed with him, but that was a bridge too far. She's like, I'm not visiting you in the hospital. That's it. Which is understandable, but from the outside, it looks a little harsh. You don't want to prop him back up before you split. I guess it was easier when he was unconscious. Take the keys
Right.
back.
Yeah.
But,
Well, cool. I'll put some bandwidth in to get helping figure out what we can do to get some SOPs going. I'd love some talking about what I need to do to get these things kind of documented to hand off, or at least I don't know if that's a 3-ring binder. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know if it's an operating
just
manual.
put it there. You can attach PDFs or whatever on that.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you want to, but you can publish it just with a click of the button and share it with whoever you want to. It's not going to, I mean, people surfing the nets aren't going to find it. You have to supply them with a link.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you have anybody to share it to right now unless you're starting a class.
Mm-mm.
But if you get big into the arbitrage, I mean, you could say, I'm Mr. Sober Living. You got a property that would work. You're going to be my partner in Idaho, Cali, Arizona.
Yeah.
I think that's how it goes. You solve a problem.
Yeah.
And to scale it, you just need people and capital. You've got the playbook. All right, I'm gonna hit the hay.
I've got the
Thanks
brains.
for everything.
All right, brother. I'll see you later
All
on.
right. Good night.
Bye.